Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and this is my furry sidekick Kylie, and we are here today to kick off a vlog reading some of my Magical Readathon books. Magical Readathon is of course brought to us by G from Book Roast, and it is a fantastic readathon that happens twice a year where we go to school to learn magic, and who doesn't want that? This year I am going into my 4th year as an alchemist, and that means I have a pretty ambitious TBR, which I have already shared and of course will have linked for you. But I figured one way to hold myself accountable is to actually read some of these books in a vlog. Some of them will be popping up in different vlogs that I have planned during the month, but I have a few that just don't fit in any particular way, so I decided I might as well share my thoughts as I'm reading them with you. I've actually started a couple of my Magical Readathon books to start the month off strong. One of them will be appearing in a different vlog, but the one that I'm reading for this vlog to start things off is Lies We Sing to the Sea by Sarah Underwood. This is the really pretty Illumicrate edition, and I do love the sprayed edge and the way it kind of works with the book in general. Signed M papers and foiled hardcover in here. And I'm currently about halfway into this one. The people of Ithaca are living under a curse, and each year 12 of their young maidens are selected by Poseidon to be sacrificed. And this comes about, they get some sort of marking on them that shows that they're one of the ones to be sacrificed. We start off following Leto, and she's been taken in as one of these sacrifices, and she is fighting back tooth and nail, using her brain, using her body to try to get out of this. But she doesn't. She winds up being sacrificed, but it doesn't exactly go the way she thinks it will. She does die, but she wakes up on this island, this kind of weird, impossible, almost empty place. And she's told that she can end this curse if she kills the Prince of Ithaca. But then we're also following this Prince Matthias, and he noticed Leto in the crowd when she was being sacrificed. He feels bad about this. He doesn't like this process. So there's a little bit of questioning, I think the author's trying to give the reader of, should he be killed? Is that a worthy sacrifice? And is it trusted that this would actually kill the curse by killing him? So I would say so far I'm liking it. I'm not loving it. I'm not feeling super invested in the story, but I do want to keep going. I want to see what winds up happening in here and how the interactions continue to develop between our main characters, and we're starting to see them together by the halfway point. They haven't had a lot of interactions up until we're a good way into the story already, so I am really intrigued to see what those interactions are going to look like as we get further in. He doesn't realize she is who she is, which makes sense since he thinks the person he knew of as Leto is dead, so there's a lot of kind of misdirection going on in here, but in an understandable way, so I'm not feeling like it's falling entirely in a miscommunication trope type of issue. So I am looking forward to continuing on with this, and I'll check back in once I have finished off my first book. I have finished up my first book for Magical Readathon, and unfortunately, Lies We Sing to the Sea was not a huge win. I had a few issues with it, and overall, it just wasn't one that sucked me in. One thing that this had going on, which I didn't really talk about at the midway because I wasn't 100% sure where it was heading, is that there really winds up being a love triangle in here, which is not my favorite thing. When Leto dies and she wakes up on this island, she's greeted by this woman who has been there, who has the information for her that she can break this curse by killing the prince, who can train her and open her up to some new abilities and all of these things. And this turns into a lot of mutual pining between the two, and eventually a romance, and they wind up in bed together, and so on and so forth. There is also Leto and the prince, and there's a relationship there. There's definitely an attraction there. And I think this one gets called a sapphic romance, but there definitely is also this relationship with the prince, and not everyone's on the same page. There is definitely a romance going on between the two women, but then on the side, Leto's also spending time with this prince, and there's definitely a romance going on there, and overall, not a favorite type of thing. I also felt like there were a lot of unanswered questions about why Leto gets picked, why the various women in general get picked to be the sacrifices, and we learn more about the prince and his family's role through time. We definitely see some moments of sadness of the way that these women have tried to go and kill someone to eradicate this curse, and it leads to some definitely questionable decisions in my mind. I think there just were some things that I wanted answered better. I do like the fact that this ending wasn't what I expected from it. I need to be vague about that because I think that is one of the strongest parts of this, is that it does kind of subvert some expectations possibly. And I also did think that it was well written in the prose. I think the author has some really lyrical writing that was well done. I just wanted more fleshed out world building and concepts and answers and all of that. So in the end, this one gets a 3, kind of barely a 3 type of a rating from me. So not a huge win. I do know when this book was announced, I didn't think about it previously, but looking at a couple of reviews, there were a lot of concerns about the fact that this author didn't read the Odyssey and apparently was saying that this was based on the Odyssey or part of the Odyssey, obviously not the whole thing. And a lot of reviews do center on this. There are a lot of 1-star reviews that take that as an issue. I can't really speak to how legit anything is. I do agree this has kind of a modern feeling to it, and I wouldn't go into this book expecting a true to the original Greek retelling, but also that's not what I went into it expecting just based on the synopsis, so that didn't personally impact my rating or my enjoyment, but it is something that is a concern for many and absolutely can understand why. If you're looking for accuracy and historical accuracy and research, that's maybe not what you're going to find in this book. So onwards from here, hopefully I get a bigger win with my next book, but I'll check in with you once I get going on it. Continuing on with my Magical Readathon TBR, I've been reading Games Untold by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this is a story collection that fits in with the Inheritance games. And this is a series I've really been enjoying. The first book, I remember I sat down and basically binge read the whole thing in print, which is a rarity for me. I think the combination of the competition aspects, the games aspects, the puzzles that the reader can kind of, to some extent, figure out along with the characters, all works really well for me. Inside the book, there is a little timeline of the different books and where the short stories fall into it. The ones that I have read so far are The Night in Prague, which falls in after the final gambit and before the Brothers Hawthorne. And then also The Same Backward as Forward was a prequel to the original book, and it had to do with kind of the story behind how Avery got sucked into this whole process. And I want to keep it vague because it would spoil some of the things that happen in the main series. Between these two books, I am like 2/3 of the way through here already. I didn't quite realize how long the first two are, and therefore how quickly I was getting through it. There are 6 more stories in here, and the rest of the stories are, I think, going to be much shorter. I've been having fun with this. I think the first story I enjoyed initially more just because it was our main character, Avery, and the guy that she winds up with in the story, again keeping it vague because there is some question to that in the earlier books, and they are spending time in Prague going through a game and piecing together puzzles and things like that, which is kind of the nature of the series and what drew me into this series as a whole. The second story, being a prequel, wasn't quite as interesting to me, but I did eventually get hooked into it, and it was interesting to kind of see that backstory that we've only had alluded to more so in the full novels. So I'm eager to see what the rest of these are going to be. I'm not thinking this feels necessary to pick up if you want the full experience of the series. It feels just kind of like a bonus add-on type of story from what I've read so far. So anyway, just wanted to give a quick check-in. This one was to read a book that had a word in the title in common with the book I had been reading at the time, which had been The Games Gods Play, and so Games Untold was a perfect pick to finally get to another one of my short story collections. I'm actually meant to be doing a weekend challenge this weekend, but I could not sleep for the life of me last night, and I didn't want to focus on the book I'm reading for that. So I wound up popping on the last few stories from Games Untold, and I overall liked them. I feel like toward the end of the book we got a lot more of the side character-y stories and shorter stories, and I wasn't as invested in those. But at the end we get a really fun Secret Santa meets Capture the Flag meets outright rivalry war between the Hawthorne siblings and Avery and her sister, and that one was so much fun. And then the book ends with a story about the four brothers going out on the town doing absolute wild things to each other, and that one was a lot of fun and kind of a really nice sweet note also to end the book. So this overall was a lot of fun. I'm giving it 4 stars. I think if you enjoyed the series, you will probably enjoy this collection. Some stories probably more than others, like me, quite possibly, but still worth picking up, still had a good time, and still a good number of pages to submit for Magical Readathon. So I'm not sure what my next Magical Readathon book will be. It'll come up after the weekend. I'll make that decision, but I will let you know once I get going on something. Hello, future me is popping in here because somehow I managed to delete my clip where I introduced my next book. I have the clip where I talked about my initial thoughts at the halfway point, but I never gave the name of the book or the synopsis. So you're getting a low quality car update just to hit those points. My next book in this vlog is The Last Vanish by Megan Miranda, and this is a mystery that I received from Simon & Schuster Publishing. In this book, we're following Abigail, who moved to this small town in North Carolina, I think it was, and we are following her work at this inn, and it's an inn known for being out in nature, hikes, and beautiful scenery, and the like. It's also unfortunately known for people going missing, and this is something that's always kind of plagued this hotel. Then a reporter comes to investigate these disappearances and why they keep happening, or why they've happened in the past, and then he goes missing. So in the present day, his brother has shown up at the hotel wanting answers, and Abigail is, at least initially, trying to help him with that. So this is the basic premise of the book, definitely one that had me intrigued to pick it up, and I don't have a copy with me now, which is appropriate because as I'm going to hand you over to past me, I didn't have my copy on hand at that point either. I wasn't able to find it to film the initial clip. It was a Monday morning. That's my only excuse for somehow deleting the clip, and when I went to go double check myself on some of the details, I realized I didn't even log it as read on Goodreads, so apparently I was just having a day or a week or something. So passing you back to past me, and we'll go from there. I'm finding this to be a little bit of a slow burn. I'm not finding it necessarily to have hooked me immediately into the mystery of it, but I do want answers. I want to know if there's a connection between what's been happening and how the inn is going to factor into the wilderness and the mystery of the disappearances. So I'm eager to keep reading this one, and we'll be back to check in once I have final thoughts, hopefully with my book in hand. We'll see. I just filmed a weekend reading challenge over the weekend, and that had me making sure all my books were on shelves to include them in the particular challenge I was just doing. So I have a feeling I put it somewhere and just don't quite realize where it is, and I'm probably staring right at it. So that's my goal, is to finish the book and find the book. We will see which one happens first. Okay, if you made any bets on whether I finished the book or found the book first for The Last Vanish, the answer is technically I finished the book first, though it's because I finished it before I even got home last night, therefore didn't have a chance to look for the book. The second I went looking for the book, I did remember where it was, so we're gonna call it essentially a tie. But I did finish up The Last Vanish, and overall, I had a good time. Okay, had to take a toy away from Kylie, but she's now staring intently at her Lick Laugh Love wine glass here, so let's go ahead and finish this up. Obviously, the fact that I finished this in 24 hours is a good sign. It kept me interested enough to want to keep reading, but also it was easy enough to kind of multitask to while I worked and got some really mindless stuff done that I needed to get done. I wouldn't say it was the most engaging. I wanted it to be a little bit more edge of my seat, keeping me constantly hooked. I did think there were some good turns in here. The way our main character can't know who to trust. Is the brother of the missing guy trustable? Are the people that she works with and the people in the town people she can trust and rely on? And she basically is an outsider in this town, but also she's indoctrinated in some ways by this town. She's been here for 10 years. So there's a lot of interesting questions there that I did really appreciate in this book. I would say I question a little bit how it wrapped up, and it's just one of those things where it is kind of a moral dilemma in my mind, and it has kept me thinking about it and wondering. So that is not a bad thing to actually be thinking about the book after it's over. But at the same time, I feel like given a little bit more space, this probably isn't a book that's going to super stick in my mind to be able to talk about details about it. Give me another week or two. So overall, an interesting thriller, a good kind of change of pace from everything else I've been reading. So for that, I am giving it a solid 3.5 stars, I think, but not something that I necessarily would say is an absolute must read in this present moment. So I need to get my smoothie going, I need to get my coffee going, and I need to get going to work because I need to leave the house in like 10 minutes. And Kylie obviously needs to have some morning wine. So with that, I will check back in. I'm not sure what my next Magical Readathon book is going to be just yet, but I will let you know once I figure that out. I read in its entirety The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and this one is one that I put on my Magical Readathon TBR for a book that's rated higher than 4 stars, if I'm remembering correctly. I forgot to double check myself before pushing to film. But this is a nonfiction. It's really a collection of 3 essays, essentially, but it's the author's kind of experiences and thoughts and really well put together ideas around racism as a chief component and making comparisons between Palestine and what's been going on there with the way that Black people have been treated in America and just the systemic racism that runs rampant everywhere. We get a lot of thoughts about the Jewish state versus how they've been treated in the past, deplorably, but also then how the Palestinian people, and this is prior to any of the invasion in Gaza, just the ideas of not having access to water and to supplies and to things they need and being treated differently and using different taxis and all of these types of things. There's also a discussion of his visit to Africa and kind of seeing that backdrop and the way colorism maybe works there in a similar way to how it might be perceived in America. And his writing is just gorgeous. He talks also about how he wasn't a good student. He struggled in school and how he overcame that to become this fantastic, beautiful writer. And there's just so many quotes in here I could underline and highlight and really hold on to. I think this is a discussion, a book that will stick with me. Definitely a 5-star read and one I would recommend. Next up for Magical Readathon, I decided to go with my book that was picked based on the first line, and that is Darkly by Marisha Pessl. And I read a few first lines for my TBR, and this is the one I went with, and I'm really, really excited about it. Kylie's going to be making some noise because I took away her toy. It does match the book, but I don't really want the sound at the moment. This is an YA mystery, I would say. It's definitely got some dark elements to it. We are following Dia, and she is a young woman who definitely has an old soul. She likes to be around older people. She doesn't really fit in with her peers necessarily. Her family runs a antique shop, and it's her mother who took it over from her grandmother when she passed, and they've got 2 elderly employees, but really Dia's the one who kind of runs the show. So things get a big shakeup when Dia's absolute favorite game designer, who has passed away, but her estate puts out a call for interns for a summer. And Dia really, really wants this, although she does think it's strange. This is a game designer who was known to put the smallest of clues, little hints to things, and this seems to be just a straightforward, come in, file our paperwork type of internship. But she decides that she wants it anyway. She's one of brilliance of people applying, and somehow, even though she put absolutely nothing into her application before it goes in for various reasons, she gets picked. and she goes off and she meets with this very quirky group of fellow interns, and they are taken to this mysterious island where this game designer did everything. These are the types of games that absolutely would call to me. They've got puzzles and mystery elements, and you have to do weird things to get answers, and I really just find that type of an element in a story really compelling, and I think it's being really well done in here. We've got a little bit of mixed media in here as well. We've got some letters from the game designer in the past, some news articles, things like that, which are fun additions to the story. And there's definitely something creepy related to these games. The synopsis really doesn't tell you much beyond the whole idea of this internship, so I don't want to spill the beans either, but I really like the mystery element that's put in. It has some similarities I would draw between this and Ready Player One. I think it has some of those vibes going for it, except this is more of a board game situation. Ready Player One obviously was very much digital video game type thing. So this is something I'm having a fantastic time with. I really got mad at myself because I realized I was at 50% the other day and I needed to put it down, and then I had some technical difficulties and couldn't get back to it. So I am absolutely eager to keep reading and will absolutely be back with more thoughts. I am back because I finished up Darkly last night as I was sitting and crocheting, and I had a fantastic time with this. I had a few questions about how it ended, and there were a few moments throughout where I felt like it dragged out a little longer than maybe it needed to, but I love the concept of it. I did find some of the twists and turns to be surprises, which was nice. I liked the idea of having these mixed media elements thrown in, not to an overwhelming number or extent, but to add to the story and flesh things out. I thought the setting of the factory and this island and just in general, I thought was really well depicted, really well fleshed out in terms of it kind of being atmospheric and a little bit gothic, a little bit creepy, a little bit, I don't know how to describe it, but I did enjoy the setting as well. And the fact that our main character, Dia, is very intelligent when it comes to picking apart clues. The romance elements in here, definitely it's a YA, definitely didn't feel super developed to me, but it was such a minor subplot that it also didn't detract from the story for me. So in the end, this one is getting a solid 4 stars. I had a great time with it. I definitely will look forward to reading more from the author in the future. Happy Friday. I was looking at my Magical Readathon TBR yesterday and realizing there's just one more book that I absolutely have to get to finish off my required reading for alchemy. I do have a few extras that I'd like to do, some extra credit per se, but other than the current Wheel of Time book that I'm working my way through, which will take me till the very, very end of the month, and there'll be a whole live show for that one, so I'm not going to cover it in here, and books I've already read for other vlogs, I have one book left. And that is my book with fruit on the cover. And I have now made it halfway into The 3 Lives of Kate K by Kate Fagan. And this has this little lime air freshener on the cover that we are counting as our fruit. This synopsis does not tell you a lot, so I don't want to say too much about what actually the plot of this is. Kate K is a household name. She is an author of a very, very popular series that took the world by storm. But Kate K is not her real name. It is her alias, and it's not her first alias. She's really good at flying under the radar with alternate personalities. I mean, not in a mental health sense, but just in a recreating herself sense. And she has reasons for this. This book is being written sort of like her tell-all, but including interviews and the stories of people from her life who, at this later point when this is being written, now know the full story, but they're telling their piece of it as well. This goes back to her original self as a child growing up and her big plans for her life and what derailed that and made things change. And it's sad, it's really engaging, it's looking at the romances in her life as a queer woman, it's looking at her start to writing and how her book got discovered and how it's now being made into a major motion picture, and no one still knows who Kate K is. Even her agent, even her book publisher, they don't know who Kate K really is. There's really only one person who does. And now the star of this movie is asking to meet her because there's something about the book she finds compelling and she really wants to meet the real woman behind the name. And I'm having a fantastic time with this. This is one that several friends that I trust really enjoyed, so I went in with high expectations and thankfully they are being met. I think we're getting great character development. I would say this is more character heavy than plot heavy, but there's certainly plot to it as well and some twists and turns to it that I did not really expect. So I'm having a fantastic time. It's a really easy listen. I think it's likely to be something I can finish up today. I have kind of a busy Friday today and a lot of time probably in the car more than normal, and I do have the audiobook for this one, so that should work well for me. So with that, I need to get some coffee because I did not sleep at all well last night, and that's number one priority today before I need to get out the door and get to work in about 20 minutes. So I still have a lot to do. We'll see how it goes. I'll check in with you later. Okay, I've now finished up the 3 Lives of Kate K, and I had a good time with this one. I worried a little bit earlier on that the miscommunication stuff in here was going to drive me up the wall. That said, I think the style of this and the fact that it's being told from after the fact, that this is kind of like a memoir or a reveal looking back in time, and the fact that we get different POVs mixed in, we come at it with a perspective of kind of knowing that things have turned out in a certain way, trying to be as vague as possible while still communicating something. But I think that gave a little bit less frustration to some of the things that our main character doesn't know or that she's not saying. And we know that eventually, obviously, the story is going to come out. I thought the depiction of friendship in here was fantastic. The relationships in here, the good, the bad, the toxic, all were really well developed. And our main character really goes through a really good, I think, character redemption or just development. She's very young at the start of this book and she makes mistakes that were frustrating. But I think there were other factors involved, and over time she grows and acknowledges her mistakes, which I really appreciated as well. So this was a very strong 4-star, maybe a 4.5. Really had a great time with it and would recommend it. With that, we have now finished up this vlog and the majority of my Magical Readathon reading. I do need to finish my current Wheel of Time book, but it's one that I'm reading a little bit at a time. I'm already more than a third of the way through, so I have no doubt I will be finished by the end of the month and will have successfully completed the spring semester for Orilium. Thank you so much to G from Book Roast for this fantastic readathon. I already can't wait for the next installment in the fall, and thank you all for joining me on this adventure. Let me know in the comments below, have you read any of these books or any of them on your TBR? If you're participating in Magical Readathon, let me know how it's going for you. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me a fruit emoji for the lime on this one and the prompt that went with it. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my readathon reading, more of my book reviews, and more of my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.